Welcome to Lower Body Recovery Day, Mobility and Activation. Beginning with the bottom of the foot, taking a lacrosse ball or a golf ball or tennis ball, anything that you have available, and rolling the bottom of the foot. You can roll back and forth. You can also flex the toes around the ball and extending them, and then even planting the ball of the foot and rocking the heel back and forth over the ball. Moving on up the leg, we'll move to the calf. You can use either a lacrosse ball or a foam roller, but finding areas on the calf, and then if you would like, adding some movement with the ankle. Moving to the front of the leg, we'll focus on mobilizing the anterior tibialis, finding points of tension in the muscle, and then moving the foot through its range of motion. The next area we'll hit is the quad. Coming into a low plank position, rolling from the top of the knee all the way up to the top of the quad closest to the hip. If you find an area with more restriction, you can add some movement of the knee by bending and extending. The next area we will hit is the adductor. This is the inner part of the leg. So coming parallel to your foam roller, leg perpendicular to it in a 90-90 position, you're going to roll from the inner part of the knee all the way up to the inner groin. Again, if you would like, you can add movement by straightening the leg and bending it back. Moving to the back of the leg, we'll hit the hamstring, making sure to go from behind the knee all the way up to the upper part of the leg. Just like the other areas of tension, if you would like, you can add some movement by straightening the leg all the way out and relaxing it back down. Moving on up to the hip, we will work on the side of the hip first, placing either a ball or a foam roller on the area between the upper hip and the greater trochanter of the femur. You can roll a little bit, finding the area of tension, and then if you would like, add some movement by bringing that bottom leg towards the top leg. The next area of the hip that we will hit is the back of the hip in your piriformis. So again, you can either use a lacrosse ball or a foam roller, but rolling and finding different areas of tension along the back of the hip. Making sure as well to come up as high as you can on the hip and then add some movement, finding those areas of tension. Finishing up with our soft tissue, we will now move on to more movement-based work. The first exercise is a high plank into downward dog. I want you to focus on keeping good core control and moving up into the downward dog position. Complete 10. Next, we'll move on to the world's greatest stretch. Again, I would want you to complete 10 rotations each side. The next exercise is a Cossack squat series. So coming from a front lunge into a side lunge and back. Again, complete 10 on each leg. Moving onto the ground, we'll come into a half kneeling adductor position. The first motion is a T-spine rotation, rotating away from the outstretched leg. Complete 10 and switch to the other side. Staying in that same position, we'll now move into a half kneeling press back. So rocking the hips back towards the heel. Again, complete 10 and switch to the other side. Now we'll move into a half kneeling adductor opener. Again, completing 10 on each side, focusing on keeping the core nice and engaged and the hips pressing forward when you're doing this movement. Now we'll come into a hip 90-90. You can first do this motion by using the support of your hands. Having the legs come into a 90-90 position, rotating back through neutral and to the other side. If you want more of a challenge, as well as have good core control and can keep an upright posture, you can move into doing the movement with no support. If you have access to a weight and you're not new to this movement, you can do these weighted as well. Coming forward into a little bit of a pigeon stretch, and then working your way through the 90-90 position. Again, do not do this movement if you have not done the hip 90-90 before. The next exercise is a cat-cow, working on moving our spine all the way into flexion and into extension. Completing 10 motions both directions, going slow and controlled, focusing on moving each vertebrae through its range of motion. Next, we will move into a hamstring stretch with glute activation. For this, you will need a band or a towel or belt. Bending the knee towards the chest, extending the leg to straight, and then using your glute to bring the leg back to the ground. Complete 10 and switch to the other side. Now we will move into more activation exercises. The dead bug. I want you to come onto your back, arms stretched out in front of you, and knees bent to 90-90. You're going to move alternate arm, alternate leg down towards the ground. Keeping the core nice and engaged, the back should not arch off of the ground. If you want to add resistance, you can by placing a band around the feet. Again, that core should be nice and engaged, and back should remain nice and neutral when completing this movement. Complete 10, each leg and arm. Next, we will move into a side plank position with a clamshell. So coming up into a side plank, you can either come up and down or add the clamshell at the top. Separating the knees apart, keeping the feet together. Again, complete 10 and switch to the other side. Now coming up into a standing position, we will move on to side steps to squat, placing the band either around the feet, the ankles, or the knees, stepping to the side and squatting down. Again, 10 each direction. Coming into a single leg stance, focusing on feeling a good contraction through the glute and the hamstring on the stance leg, you're going to move the opposite leg in 3 directions, to the side, diagonal back, and straight back. Again, most of your weight is on that stance leg or the non-moving leg. Complete 10 and switch to the other side. Now we'll come into side steps in a W position, so stepping forward and back 10 times each direction.